Most of what you call reality doesn't come from outside you. It's born inside you. Your brain reads the world through the filters of the past, old experiences, beliefs, and familiar patterns you no longer notice. Studies suggest that around 95% of our thoughts repeat, and most of them lean negative. Which means the facts you think you're seeing out there are often reflections of what has been happening inside you for a long time. Picture a simple situation. Two people get fired on the same day. One collapses into despair. It feels like everything is over. The other sees an opening, a chance to start again, to change direction, to grow, to walk through a new door. The difference isn't the event, it's the meaning they attach to it. The first believed his worth was defined by a job title. The second understood something deeper. A job does not define who he is. One fact, two completely different realities. And that explains a lot. You don't react to facts. You react to the story your mind tells about them. And if that story is built on old fears, unresolved pain, or limiting beliefs, life will feel more chaotic than it actually is. But here's the key. The cycle isn't final. Your mind can be rewired. The moment you start observing your thoughts, rather than merging with them, you gain a new possibility. Choice. That's what we're going to explore next. Why, even when you know you're repeating the same mistakes, you still get stuck in them. What keeps you running on autopilot, and how to step out of that state without losing control of your life. You've probably noticed it. Even when you want to change, you repeat the same patterns. You react the same way when someone disagrees with you. When you feel rejected. When you feel like you're losing control. That isn't weak willpower. That's autopilot. Your brain is designed to save energy, and one way it does that is by turning emotional and behavioral patterns into unconscious habits. Research from Duke University suggests that around 40% of what we do each day isn't a conscious decision. It's automatic. Nearly half of your day is repetition. Imagine someone who always avoids conflict. As a child, he learned that speaking up leads to fights, so he stayed quiet. And now, even in situations where he could speak calmly and firmly, he stays quiet again. Not because he chooses to, because he once learned that silence is safer. The pattern became automatic, and it shows up everywhere. In how you interpret reality, in how you respond to disappointment, in how you handle difficulty. These are mental scripts shaped over years, and now they run without your awareness. The good news is that autopilot can be turned off, but not with a snap of your fingers. The first step is awareness. Start noticing in real time which automatic reaction is showing up again. Even that alone creates a gap, and inside that gap, you can choose a different response. In the next section, you'll see why trying to control everything only intensifies this dynamic, and why the need for control often keeps you stuck in the same place. One of the biggest sources of anxiety today is the constant attempt to control what can't be controlled. Outcomes, the future, other people's reactions. And here's the paradox. The more you try to hold everything in your hands, the less secure you feel. The reason is simple. The human brain hates uncertainty. It prefers a bad but predictable scenario over the unknown. That's why people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and familiar discomfort, because at least it feels controllable. But the truth is, total control is a myth. You can plan, you can prepare, you can try your hardest, and still, you cannot fully control how other people behave, what happens tomorrow, or anything beyond your reach. Trying to change another person, controlling their words, decisions, behavior, rarely leads to what you want. More often, it leads to frustration, conflict, and emotional burnout. Many people live as if they must predict every detail. They reread messages 10 times before sending them. They replay scenarios. They try to anticipate every outcome. But it doesn't create peace. It creates more tension. Studies show that people with a high need for control tend to experience more stress and tolerate frustration less. And here's the turn. Admitting you don't have full control isn't giving up. It's stopping the energy leak. It's focusing on what actually depends on you, your choices, your reactions, your attitude. But even when you stop trying to control the outside world, there's still one thing many people run from: silence. Silence sounds simple, but for many, it's almost unbearable. A few minutes without stimulation, and an uneasy restlessness appears. So we reach for the phone, turn on the TV, play background noise, anything, to avoid hearing our own mind. That discomfort has a reason. When everything outside goes quiet, the noise inside gets louder. Fears, uncertainty, unresolved pain, old disappointments. That's why silence feels threatening. It reveals what daily busyness keeps hidden. There's a well-known experiment, including findings associated with the University of Virginia. Many participants preferred mild electric shocks rather than sitting alone in silence for 15 minutes. That says a lot about how strongly we avoid meeting our own consciousness. Here's a common example. Someone is constantly busy, always doing something. They look productive, but the moment they have free time, a strange emptiness appears, something they can't even name. And so they load themselves with more tasks, not because they need to, because they're afraid of facing that inner void. This constant escape keeps the mind active, but it doesn't create clarity. The result is emotional exhaustion and a quiet sense of dissatisfaction. The key is to change your relationship with silence, not to run from it, but to use it, to listen. This isn't about meditating for an hour. It's about gradually learning to tolerate your own inner rhythm without needing to fill every space. Being present isn't mystical, it's a practical skill. To be present means noticing what's happening now, rather than dissolving into the past or worrying about the future. It sounds simple, but it's rare. How many times have you been somewhere physically, but somewhere else, mentally? That happens because the brain is trained to drift. We live in next mode, thinking about what comes next, solving problems that haven't even arrived. A Harvard study found that people spend about 47% of their time thinking about something other than what they're doing. And the more that happens, the lower their reported well-being. The good news is that you can train this. Sometimes 1 minute is enough. Stop. Take a few slow breaths. Feel your body. That alone can interrupt the stream of automatic thought and bring you back. Another practice is a body scan, moving your attention through different parts of your body and noticing sensations. It doesn't take long. You can do it in a few minutes between tasks. Over time, this changes how you respond. You start noticing the moment an automatic reaction begins, and you gain more space to choose how you'll act. And here's something crucial. There's a real difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. Loss happens, disappointment happens, life hits hard, but suffering is what we build on top of pain. One person allows the feeling and eventually moves forward. Another feeds the pain with thoughts like, "I'll never be happy again. This always happens to me. I'm not good enough." That second wave is suffering, and it isn't required. Research consistently shows that the way we interpret negative events strongly affects how intense suffering becomes and how long it lasts. In other words, what keeps you stuck isn't the event, it's the meaning you attach to it. This isn't about ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about not making pain your identity. Because once pain becomes who I am, any attempt to change feels like a threat. The path is to let pain exist without fighting it, to observe your feelings, name the emotions, allow them. Feeling isn't weakness, it's presence, and presence reduces suffering. Pain moves through faster when you don't suppress it. Resistance usually only stretches it out. Then there's another layer, attachment, not only to people, but to expectations, to the idea that life must look a certain way. The more you cling to a fixed picture of how life should be, the more you suffer when reality doesn't match it. That includes plans that didn't work out, people who don't behave the way you hoped, images of yourself you built, and now feel trapped inside. Attachments are mental constructions that become emotional prisons. A clear example: someone stays in a career that no longer has meaning for them. They know it. They feel it every day. But they remain attached to the idea that changing paths would mean failure. They aren't attached to the job. They're attached to an identity built around it. Another common example is attachment to control in relationships. Someone believes, if the other person changes, everything will be fine. And again, they hit disappointment, because reality isn't obligated to follow a script. Psychological research suggests that the stronger the emotional attachment, the stronger the experienced suffering. Because attachment places your peace into something external, something you can't fully control. To let go isn't to surrender. It's to accept that you can't control everything, and that your inner peace shouldn't depend on external conditions. When you stop demanding that life match your expectations, space appears. Space to live what is, instead of what should have been. And there's one more key factor: the way you speak to yourself. Your inner dialogue shapes everything: mood, decisions, confidence. And what's surprising is that it usually happens quietly, in the background. Think about how you respond to mistakes. Many people attack themselves, diminish themselves, compare themselves to others. The thoughts may seem harmless, but they have real impact. Studies link negative self-talk to higher stress and a higher risk of anxiety and depression. It's like living with a harsh critic in your head. For example, someone forgets an important meeting. A healthy inner voice says, "Okay, it happened. What can I do now to fix it?" But for many people, the voice says, "I'm a failure. No one will trust me now." That kind of inner talk doesn't solve the problem. It amplifies shame and shuts down action. And this is where rewiring begins. It's not self-deception. It's not empty positive slogans. It's learning to notice automatic thoughts and replace judgment with useful questions. For example, replace "I never get this right" with "What can I learn from this?" It sounds small, but changing language changes response. You can't stop the stream of thought completely, but you can change the tone you speak to yourself with. And that changes everything. Resilience, your ability to face difficulty, even your mental health. Resilience isn't enduring in silence. It's the ability to turn pain into something useful. Once you understand that, difficulties stop looking like pure obstacles and start looking like part of growth. Imagine someone who suddenly loses their job. The first reaction is despair, fear, disappointment. But over time, that experience can become a turning point. Some people start a business, change industries, find a path that fits their real self. It's hard, but it's possible. And sometimes it transforms a life. Research in growth psychology suggests that people who go through major hardship and manage to reframe it often report higher long-term life satisfaction. The pain didn't disappear. It became a catalyst. That's what separates those who break from those who become stronger. Not the absence of pain, but what they do with it. The right question in those moments isn't, "Why did this happen to me?" It's, "What can I do with this, right now?" And remember, Resilience isn't born in the middle of a crisis. It's built beforehand. Through small daily choices, caring for your emotional state, building self-awareness, creating space between stimulus and response. Inner peace isn't something you find by accident. It's something you build. In small decisions every day, not reacting to a thought, but observing it. Taking a deep breath instead of exploding. Stepping away for a moment so you can return to yourself. Picture this. Someone is criticized at work. They're tired, under pressure. They can come home and unload on people who did nothing wrong, or they can notice their state, pause, breathe, before they speak. That is a choice, and that choice changes everything. Neuroscience confirms that the brain is plastic. The more you practice a response, the stronger that pathway becomes. That applies to impulsive reactions and to conscious responses. Presence, changing inner dialogue, letting go of control. All of it requires repetition. Understanding isn't enough. You have to practice. And the most important part is accepting that it won't always be easy. You will slip. You will forget. You will fall back into old patterns. But every time you return, even after a setback, you strengthen the path, step by step, toward a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. And this is where it all comes together. If you've made it to this point, you're no longer where you started. Awareness is an advantage, and the decision you make with that awareness will shape your next step. Peace isn't somewhere in the future. It begins in how you choose to live this moment. Thank you for watching. I hope this gave you something to reflect on. Until next time.